So we very much appreciate all of you joining today. We're going to talk about data protection for content creators. We're joined by our partners ATTO and Hedge, and we're going to talk about data protection best practices and how to leverage the power of your 10 or 25 gig or faster networks to add high-speed archive for workgroups at the lowest possible cost per terabyte. So some of the common challenges we've heard about over the years for content creators, M&E professionals related to data protection are comments such as, well, we really only keep 2 copies of work in progress. That works for us. Disk is often used as the primary and the backup medium. Some folks are using disk as a third copy and storing the disk offline. I've talked to folks who say, yeah, we'll do a project, we'll put it on an internal hard drive, and then we'll pull that drive and put it on the shelf. That works for us. Costs can be exorbitant to maintain 3 copies of your data, particularly when using the cloud. Cloud can get quite expensive. And managing the various copies can become burdensome in general. And implementing what's known as the 3-2-1 strategy for data protection can just in of itself become burdensome. So there's some variations on it, but the 3-2-1 strategy means 3 copies of all data on 2 different types of media, and 1 is stored offsite. And we're here to promote that on this session and remind everybody that is best practice, and talk about MagStor's new ePro 10G tape archive solutions, which feature Hedge software and ATTO networking technologies, which enable much more simple archiving of your valuable content. And by implementing archive solutions on your 10 or 25 gig E networks or faster, creators can secure your assets with 3 copies easily and quickly, and make additional copies for off-site storage, which is air-gapped and protected. So that's kind of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to start with our partner ATTO, the best foundation for really good network implementation and content data protection is with a good network setup. So Azim Malik is here from ATTO to go next.
Thanks for the introduction, Pete. Hi, everyone. My name's Azim, and I'm a product specialist here with ATTO Technology. Just a little background about the company. We were founded in 1988, and we were based out of Buffalo, New York. We are a globally recognized leader in the storage, bridging, and network connectivity domain, and we have been doing this for over 35 years now, and nobody knows storage connectivity better than we do. So just a little bit on the Ethernet connectivity solutions that we particularly want to talk about today. If you look at the enterprise IT, or let's say IT in general, Ethernet interfaces, or Ethernet emerges as one of the most popular and widely used networking interface. You can connect anywhere between hundreds to over 1,000 more than thousands of devices. You can interface it on your Ethernet networks, and this is primarily because of its operational simplicity, the quality of services, the power efficiency, the speed, and most importantly, the ease of management of Ethernet networks. It is this simplicity that allows Ethernet networks to be widely adopted across various workflows, whether it be in healthcare, enterprise IT, your small, medium businesses, and most importantly, the premise of today's conversation, media entertainment workflows. So 10 gig infrastructure is readily available today, and 25 gig is also slowly taking over the market. And this actually presents an interesting opportunity for us to talk about how can we leverage your existing Ethernet infrastructure to throw tape drives onto that particular IT ecosystem. But before I go into that specifics, I wanted to briefly touch base on the network management side of things with one of our key software products, which is Atto 360. So I've talked about how Ethernet is a simple, easy to use networking interface. However, if you look at if you really aim for getting the optimum performance, network management and the ability to fine tune certain metrics also becomes important. And this is what Atto 360 does. So Atto 360 is essentially a tuning, monitoring, and analytics software. And you can essentially optimize, and analyze your Ethernet networks very effectively with just a click of a button. So setup and configuration of clients to your storage is really easy. You do not need to understand complicated network theory to make this possible, and you can optimize your throughput by up to 30% with the tuning profiles associated with specific Atto devices that are on the Atto 360 software. You can make as many as 70 adjustments of the Ethernet metrics with just the click of a button. And this is really important, especially if you're looking to achieve that optimum performance in a very streamlined and effective manner. Um, and like I was saying before, so we wanted to push this functionality to the SAS tape connectivity also. And this is where we work together with MagStor to develop the ePro G 10 gig archive solutions. Um, so let's just go to the next slide, Pete. Okay, so on this slide, so Atto is actually renowned for our bridging solutions. We already have a commercial established as a market leader in storage bridging, specifically in the large scale environments where we our flagship product, which is an Extreme Core bridging device. It connects up to 16 tape drives in large scale environments. And as we navigated through the market, we identified the need for supporting the same kind of workflows in smaller capacities. And that's where we developed a bridge solution to help connect anywhere between 1 to 4 tape drives. Now, the question I'm often asked is why throw my SAS tape drives on the network? It's Some of the things that really come into my mind is the way we do today, the way we connect SAS tape drives today is to do indirect attach configurations. And these actually present some interesting challenges that are often overlooked. And one of them is reliability. So if let's say a backup server that's connected to a tape drive via SAS HPA just it fails for whatever reason, you now lose access to that particular tape drive. And especially and moreover, in clustered environments, you may have a different server take over the primary storage responsibilities, but then now you still do not have access to that tape archive because the tape archive is connected directly to that server, which is no longer available on the network. So, and additionally, you should also note that because all the data is being driven through that backup server, there is a potential of running into bottlenecks because that particular backup server is not just backing up data to tape drives or tape libraries, but it's also bringing in data from other sources on the network. And most importantly, you are missing out on the opportunity to disaggregate tape storage on the network, which is one of the key requirements, especially if you're looking to enable a complete disaster recovery solution. And it is these challenges that we address through the Ethernet bridging product that we have embedded inside MagStor's tape drives and tape libraries today. We can just move to the next slide, Pete. So fast forward, as I was saying earlier, these are some of the key benefits that we introduced with the bridging component with MagStor's archiving solutions. So you can easily read and write data to a SAS tape drive or tape library, just as if it were a direct attached device on the network. You can make the tape drives available on the network and multiple servers or clients can access them. And this is both local and remote. And this is where the ability to configure and reconfigure the architecture comes into the picture, especially in scenarios when servers fail. So let's say the server that's connected, you have multiple servers connected to the tape drive. One of them fails, and you can still run the backup through the other servers that are connected to the tape library, because the tape library is accessible as a shared resource on the network. And lastly, it's the simplicity in managing such infrastructures, because we all know you don't require specialized knowledge or any kind of dedicated server hardware to manage an environment like this. So Ethernet is fundamentally understood in all levels of IT. So there's also that component of simplicity that's brought into the picture. Next slide, please. Thank you. So these are some high-level features of the product that's embedded in MagStor's library today. So it comes with two dual 10 gig ports for connectivity up to 4 iSCSI hosts with up to 8 iSCSI sessions. And there's a single 12 gig SAS mini HD connector. That's for the SAS end to connect up to 4 SAS tape drives, and we support all the way from LTO 7 to LTO 9. And we are proud to partner with one of our key partners, Hedge Canister, through their archiving software solution. And one of the things that I actually missed on this slide is that we also have a dedicated management port on the bridging component too. So that's something key to note as well. And we are operating system independent. And if you do need to access or connect to a Mac operating system, ATTO also provides an iSCSI initiator, and I'm pretty sure Pete's going to talk about it in his later slides.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Azim. And thanks for introducing yourself too. I kind of skipped that at the beginning. So Paul, could you introduce yourself and say a little bit about Hedge as you get started on the next section?
Sure, Pete. I'd be happy
Thanks.
to. Paul, I'm the founder of Hedge. We came to market about 8 years ago. We started out as a one-app company. We made an app called Hedge. 8 years down the road, we've grown into a whole portfolio of apps that all focus on removing friction from technical workflows. Our flagship app, which used to be called Hedge, is now called Offshoot. That's being used by a lot of DATs, data handlers, camera operators, to make sure you can safely create backups from camera cards to multiple drives, everything except LTO. It handles S3 uploads, it handles network storage as well. And we have some transcoding solutions with Edit Ready. We are known for PostLab, our collaboration software for Premiere and Final Cut Pro, and also Mimic collaboration for Avid editors. And we have some check and review tools in the form of Scopebox, which are live video scopes, and FullCat, which are beautiful camera reports with rich metadata. But what it's mostly about today is the archive and backup section here. And that's where Canister comes into play. If you archive only to disk or to S3, Offshoot is your ticket. But if you work with LTO, then Canister is the app to look at, because we strive to make things super simple. And you'll see in the next slide how simple that is. So historically, working with LTO and LTFS, the file system that comes with it, is pretty techy. Some people joke you need an IT degree for it, especially to troubleshoot it. We got asked by manufacturers in the industry if we could do what we did for regular backups, if we could do the same for LTO, make it super easy, remove all the technical friction, remove all the headaches and the error-prone character that comes with any of these workflows. And that's not because of the gear, but that's mostly because of us people. We're repetitive animals. And once we start getting into a flow and repeat to do stuff, we easily make mistakes because we don't pay attention to it anymore. And that's just a fact of the type of workflows we have. We try to get rid of that mostly. So what you see here is actual operation. This is actual screen recording. So you select the source, you select the tape. Canister handles the detection of the tapes for you. And then everything gets transferred in the most optimum way possible for LTO, because the linear tape character has some caveats with it that don't come with SSDs or hard drives, in how you want to store files in it, and also how you want to verify that. With an LTO, you cannot simply scroll back and forth. Well, you can do, but you have to wait for a while because it takes there's about a mile of tape in a cartridge. So it takes a while, you can imagine, to spool back and forth. Besides the whole visual aspect, what we think is the rocket science in Canister is the way we treat the moving parts of the system. If you want to work with LTO, there are 8 moving parts: the operating system, the LTFS driver, the LTO drive itself, the firmware in the LTO drive, the HPA, the ATTO. HPA also has a driver. Fuse is a dependency of LTFS currently. So there's a whole bunch of stuff into play, and all of that is rocket science, high-end stuff by itself. But making it work is hard if you need to do it from scratch. So Canister takes away all of that for you and just tells you which parts need updating, which parts need installing, so that you are sure that everything, when you go to tape with your data, it actually goes to tape in the best way possible. We call that pre-flight checks. It happens on every app start, and it automatically fetches the latest driver information from the internet. So there's nothing you have to do yourself there. It's pretty straightforward. Another thing is, of course, all the forensics. You need logs of what you did. You have transfer logs, you have media hash lists, which are important in M&E industry. They're just ledgers of what has been archived, to where, and when did it happen. Borrowed from Offshoot, there's very strong duplicate detection, because especially with tape, you don't want to have useless waste of space. You want to make sure everything that gets to tape is just the one file. And if you archive something twice, the system recognizes it. And even if it's a newer version of that file, it will only copy it in that case, and not if it's the exact same thing. Even if it's on a different path, it doesn't really matter. Everything is, as I said, fully verified with XXHash, which is the industry standard, which is super fast, so fast that it's actually not in the way, because LTO itself is already fast, but a bit slower than how fast XXHash is. If for legacy reasons you need an MD5 verification for that for your workflow, an old workflow, and that's available too. That is about the same speed as LTO itself nowadays. 300, 350 MB per second is doable. That's also the limitation of MD5, and that's the limitation of old hard drives and old grades as well. Then we have 2 big features I'd like to highlight in a bit. Pete, could you hit the next slide for me? I think you skipped one. Never mind, they'll come later. There you go. I'm gonna skip back and forth a bit. Sorry, can you go one ahead as well? There we go. So new in Canister is Connect. Connect is Hedge's push notification system and web dashboard. Typically, the stuff that we build solutions for take a long time to do. Backups take a long time. Transcoding takes a long time. Especially LTO archives can take a long time. If you want to fill up an LTO tape, easily 24 hours before it's completely full, completely verified. You don't want to have to get back to your computer all the time to see the status and figure out something. Maybe something went wrong 3 hours ago. That's a waste of hours. So you can get a push notification. That's all built in for that. Saves you a lot of time. You get a lot of DITs actually that tell us this is great. I can now be in a hotel bar with the crew. Don't have to stay up in the hotel room to do any backups, to do archiving, because it just runs. Another big one, next slide please, Pete. That one is that we just released tape libraries, support for tape libraries on Canister for Mac. It's a new tier called Canister Pro, available at $700. It's a perpetual license, comes with 1 year of updates, just like the regular Canister, which is available for $399. This is, again, the first fully drag and drop tape library interface. Tape libraries are even more technical to work with than desktop drives, and we try to make it super, super easy. We automatically detect how many slots there are in your library, how many are filled, what's in them, which barcodes the tapes have, if you have any mail slots, how many drives. Currently, we support only single drive libraries. Very soon we'll support multi-drive libraries. And this is a pretty big thing, because with libraries, especially with 10 gig networks in place, and the decentralized character of 10 gig E LTO devices, you can have multiple people in the office archiving at the same time if you have multiple drives. And that makes it super useful to have a robot managing all the tapes instead of having to go to the cupboard to actually swap tapes all the time. Pete, can you now skip back 2 for me? And one more. Yeah, there you go. That's the one. Sorry, I mixed up the order there. So originally Canister was Mac only. It came to market about 5 years ago. Last year we launched for Windows with full feature parity except for spanning. That's coming later this year. And we're also adding queuing both to Canister for Mac and Canister for Windows. And with that, you have a whole solution of actually being able to work with tape libraries, desktop units, or a mix of both, and just keep data going whenever you need it, without being dependent on just one person in the organization doing it. As said, we have push notifications in there. We think that's actually the nicest thing in there. If you have, like, everybody in our industry has many hats. There's no one that just is the archival manager. There's always so many more jobs to do. So it's great if you actually get a notification if stuff is done or stuff needs some attention of you. We have full support for Ethernet-based desktop drives, which is great because LTO drives are noisy and generate a lot of heat. So while you have them on your desktop, we think it's even better to just have them somewhere in the hallway or closer to the office, but at least not within a meter of, within literal earshot of your head while you're editing. Because a lot of us are creatives at the same time, right? While we manage archives, we also need to do some creative stuff. And then a noisy LTO unit doesn't really help with it. They're actually noisy by design because they generate a lot of heat, so they need a lot of active cooling. But there's a sort of catch-22, you cannot do without the cooling, so you cannot do without the noise. So what better than solution than to just move out the LTO drive into the nearby room. We were able to do all this tape library magic thanks to MagStor, so big thanks to Pete here. They supplied us with some test units and invaluable knowledge for the last 2 years. We were working really closely on this solution, and we're super happy how easy it has become. It's been a big project to make working with libraries as easy as with single drive units. So big thanks for that. It's, as always in this industry, it's the best results come out of working with software and hardware vendors tightly together. And that's where you get nice solutions out of.
Agreed.
I touched a bit on this in the previous one. So we're, I think, about 8 years ago, is that right, Pete? 8 years ago, the first Thunderbolt LTO machines came to market, right? And that was great, right? Up till then, LTO was a enterprise solution built for server rooms, built for data centers. Actually, while the units themselves are high tech, it's based on 40-year-old ideas, but the drives themselves are really high tech. The connection isn't, because it doesn't have to support massive speeds. So the connection is SAS. With Thunderbolt coming to the scene and Thunderbolt 2 becoming fast enough for this, it was finally possible to get a desktop unit for LTO, which is awesome. However, as I just said, people now realize that it's not as awesome as having a hard drive on your desk because it's noisy. That said, many hard drives are noisy as well if they have active cooling. So both goes both ways. That's why hard drives went into NASes, use network to be stored in the machine room. Let's do the same for LTOs, I'd say. And you get better speeds as well. You get a decentralized nature that you can actually have one tape drive in the office, but 5 people being able to talk to it one by one, whoever needs to do something. So you don't have that single point of failure in a human being that needs to handle archives. Over to you, Pete.
Thanks, Paul. I'm Pete Paisley, VP of Business Development for MagStor. MagStor has been making tape backup and tape archive hardware solutions for about the same time since Thunderbolt came out. We have a patented Thunderbolt 3 desktop solution that's been very popular for many years. And we started selling library solutions several years ago. We ship library configurations up to many petabytes of storage for the enterprise users. And we also have some other patented technologies, including NanoPure Media. We have a patented process for adding value to LTO media. So some of us who've been in the business for a while have learned on the service side of the business that new media can be harsh and a bit error prone on first use. Tape smooths out rather quickly after the first few full uses of the entire length of the tape, But not only is it harsh on your tape hardware on first use, but it's also, the error rate is much higher, particularly on the absolute first use, because of the production material, et cetera, the roughness of the media. It induces a lot of, it slows down the backup. NanoPure media, as a matter of fact, since it's pre-burnished using our patented pending process, it improves the error rate performance on first use up to 35%. It's pretty considerable. But the most important aspects of NanoPure media are that we support health reporting with our partners Hedge, so that a user gets a health score after each use. When we prepare this media in our facility, we test the media extensively. We write that baseline performance characteristic information to the cartridge memory that's built into every LTO cartridge. And Hedge reads that information after each use and does a comparative analysis to report good health, okay health, or poor health. And the other problem with tape is, if you're getting asked for a cleaning tape, or you have an error on your tape drive, it's kind of too late. You want to do more proactive steps. So this health reporting with NanoPure media is a big deal. Another very important issue is this is pre-initialized or pre-calibrated media. And those of you running LTO9 now are probably familiar with the fact that it can take quite a bit of time when you first put the media in the drive. Anywhere from 30 minutes to reports we've heard of over 2 hours, but it certainly averages an hour to 2 hours. And that can, that's a lot of time for folks. Our pre-calibrated or pre-initialized NanoPure media is very valuable for that sense. So NanoPure media is available for LTO7 onward. Please reach out for some more information about that, but we're proud that it's fully supported within Hedge Canister. And we'll jump in to talk a little bit about MagStor hardware next. And I want to make sure I point out that all of our tape solutions ship with Hedge Canister as part of the bundle. And we're really excited about the new developments Paul just talked about with Canister Pro and the new support for automation. So we're going to kind of tie this into what we talk about here. So ePro 10G is the new line of tape archive appliances from MagStor that support direct attach to your Ethernet network at 10 gig speeds. In fact, there's 2 ports on it, so we support up to 20 gigabit Ethernet in total if we have a 2-drive configuration. So there's a number of ways you can use this new technology that I just wanted to run through briefly. And this is a simple example of a shared access with 2 clients only. There's no switch, but we might have a couple Macs or a Mac and a Windows, but we could have 2 Macs and a dual drive configuration shown here, doing concurrent independent jobs, fully leveraging the 2 10 gig E ports on the device. Now, we're going to look at a couple other examples. Typically, it would be used in your work environment with a switch. 10 gig E switches now are very reasonably priced compared to what they used to be. Well under $1,000 in some cases from like QNAP and others. In the configuration such as this, where you might have 5 to 10 clients on your network, this is again an example using our tabletop drive, which can be configured with either 1 or 2 LTO7, 8, or 9 drives. Multiple users can use the device concurrently for various types of work, and each port, as I mentioned before, supports full 10 gig bandwidth in a dual drive configuration. But looking at probably a more typical scenario is we've got shared storage on our network, right? Might be QNAP or Synology or higher end stuff. And we need to archive and protect that data. So in this example, we've really just added the switch, but what we've done is shown our ePro 10G tape library solution with 24 slot library and a single LTO9 drive. And this works fantastic with the new version of Canister Pro. And in this scenario, this tape library with 1 drive and 24 slots with LTO9 can support up 432 terabytes of data native. And in some cases, for certain users, we'll recommend that they use it in an active archive configuration, which means, yes, it's a copy of your production data, but it's always available, right? And by rotating media, different copies of media through this device, you can double its workload because you can then carry off versions offsite. It's part of the 3-2-1 data protection procedure, but also keep a copy on site in the tape library. And that's part of what makes tape vastly more cost effective as a cost per terabyte versus disk or cloud. So just a reminder on the 3-2-1 strategy, let's revisit it. Keep 3 copies of your data as best practice, 2 to local and shared disk on site. And we recommend 1 to a tape library or a tape backup, ePro tape backup on site. Because again, we want to use 2 different types of media. So 3 copies, 2 to disk, different disk types, and 1 to tape. And then take a copy of that tape off site. So you've covered the basics of 3-2-1. Now, the offsite copy of tape is air-gapped. That's why it's much preferable over disk or cloud, in our opinion. It's not susceptible to cyber attacks, and it's more immune from natural disasters because it's offline. And because it's offline, it's also much more environmentally friendly because it's not using energy. It's not in an energized state. So I want to point out too, there's different variations on the 3-2-1 best practice. There's 3-2-1-1-0, for example. Since Hedge offers verification or validation, that can be part of a 3-2-1-1-0 strategy. We also encourage people to make sure they have a recovery plan in place, a restore plan in place, so that they take these offsite copies or these tape copies and they evaluate them and they do a test restore and see how long it takes to do that, etc. Copies should be restore tested regularly. So here's the key takeaway we want to reinforce today, though. This is an example using a 1 petabyte data store on a MagStor ePro 10G library. The cost, now, a lot of us might not have a petabyte of production data they protect, but some have much more. But the cost comparison is thus: disk is 76% higher in this particular circumstance than tape is as a cost per terabyte. The cheapest version of cloud that we're aware of, which is Glacier Deep Archive, S3 Glacier Deep Archive, is 163% higher. And another version of cloud from Backblaze, which is kind of an all-you-can-eat, all the access you want for reads and writes, is about 173% higher. And again, this is in a library configuration, so this is the total cost of ownership for 3 years. And the big differential with disk is tape is still a little less expensive than a lot of disk out there. Not all of it. There's some lower cost disk, but it's the cost of using the disk. You have to keep it energized all the time. And if you'd like more information about these total cost of ownership statistics, please shoot me a note and we'll get you some information on how we built this data. But the cost of energy on the disk storage is a big reason for the cost difference. Tape backup is at rest until it's performing a job, and that makes a big part of the difference. So we'd like to jump into some open discussion now and some questions for the panelists. And let's see, Emily asked, will Hedge be using LTFS for backup? Paul, would you want to talk a little bit more about LTFS? We didn't talk about it in detail. Ease of use.
Sure. Yeah, it's an integral part of working with LTO, we think. LTFS is a file system created by IBM, Quantum, and HP, the powers that be, as I tend to refer to them when it comes to LTO. It's meant to make it easier to work with what's on a tape, because in the past with TAR and with Brew file systems, those are proprietary. So if something happens to a company that creates a file system, then you no longer have access to your tapes if you don't have the software. So powers that be wanted to get rid of that, which we are completely behind. One of our company ethics is no vendor login ever. So we adopted LTFS, we enhanced it because LTFS has some shortcomings, like it cannot handle every character. Typically with LTO software, you need to figure that out yourself. We do that on the fly for you, and there's more to it. We lean heavily on LTFS to make sure it also works between Mac and Windows. So you can create a tape on Mac, read it on Windows. You can also always retrieve data from tapes made with Canister with any other LTFS software, and even without LTFS software, just with the driver. And then you rely on either Explorer or Finder. We do not recommend it because it does create trouble for the wear of the tape. But if you're in an emergency, and you just need to get the data off in one go, there is always an option with LTFS. So we think that's the most honest option to make sure that, hey, maybe you need that archive in 30 years, and who knows where we are. And I'm not sure if we're going to be around in 30 years. So you should not be reliant on us, we think. So yes, everything LTFS, for sure.
Yeah, and just for the uninitiated, the great thing about LTFS is it's the same file folder presentation as your native operating system, right? You're going to see it in the same folders and folder names, and you can handle the data in the same way on tape that way. And one of the nice similar, well, all right.
There is a caveat with if you install LTFS on your own and don't use an app like Canister for it, you gain access to that tape directly in, for instance, Finder or Explorer. But if you access the tape for that, the operating system doesn't know it's a tape, but thinks it's a hard disk. And therefore, it treats it like a hard disk, and that will screw up your tape heavily. Okay. Well, so even that it's possible, please don't, because at least not if you load a tape that it's in write mode. If you do it with read mode, completely fine, but don't do it with a tape in write mode.
Thank you for clarifying. And obviously with your cataloging feature, I don't know that we talked about that too much, but that makes it, even in a tape library configuration like that last example we showed, that makes it very easy to know what's on what tape quickly and easily. And then when you go to recover that data or pull that back down for whatever reason, yes, you have to wait a little bit for the tape to get you the information, right?
Yeah, but at least you don't have to put in a tape to find out what's on it. You get an offline representation of all your tapes. It's always up to date. It's always in the state that the tape was seen in last mount or load action. And so catalog gives you all that freedom to search in Finder and Explorer as well. So you can use it as a sort of lightweight MAM too.
Yeah, good. Gotcha. Fantastic. Let's see, we have another question here. In the active archive scenario given, how long would it take to create the first backup of 400 terabytes to the ePro tape library? Okay, so I'll start that one, and Paul, you might chime in. There's some complexities to that, and we have run some calculations and tests. If you did it all in one go, one big file transfer initiated through Hedge, which there's some caveats there that Paul will comment on. It would take about 5 weeks, roughly. And I do want to point out that disk would roughly take about a little over 4 weeks with conventional 7,600 RPM spinning disk, right? Different types of disk can be faster. And you typically wouldn't do it all that way, because if you have a large number of files, Paul, that gets kind of complex, right? With Hedge.
It's not complex. The thing is that it's not about how much data it is, it's about file count, what actually matters. File systems don't care about how large a file is, they care about many files it is. And so does the cloud actually. So if you would push this to S3, the overhead is in creating the objects. That's the exact same thing with LTO. It's the same. Yeah. They actually are very alike, S3 and LTO, in the way how they treat files. It's unstructured data that's represented as structured data. So if you work with frame-based footage or you do a lot of VFX work, you have massive amounts of files that brings down the speed of the transfers massively. in such cases, we suggest either compressing on the fly or maybe bundling some stuff together, or even zipping without compression. There are some ways to do that easily, where you can say, hey, this folder, I just want to represent as one file, but don't even use compression. I don't need that. I just want one file. If it's large files, then indeed 4 to 5 weeks, maybe even a bit less than 4 weeks, depends a bit if you're on LTO 9 or 8. But yeah, that's sort of a turnaround. That said, if it comes from one big server, and you use a tape library, that throughput will be continuous at all times. If you load up 400 terabytes as one transfer, I wouldn't do that, to be honest, because you need a very, very beefy machine to keep all those file references in memory. So I would break it up into jobs, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like just do a tape at a time or 2 tapes at a time. That's fine. It's going to take days anyway. So it's fine to just go through that. It's going to be the exact same thing when you do an active archive on cloud. It's going to bug around all the time, and you got to restart it, and you got to restart it. Because as soon as a connection breaks up, S3 SDKs just bail out and say, it needs to be good, so better redo it. So it doesn't, in that case, it doesn't really matter if you go to cloud or to LTO. It's just a workflow consideration. I saw that, for instance, Seth Golden is part of the visitors. He's one that has massive experience with moving a lot of data, a lot of different file types. It really comes down to thinking about it upfront, planning it, and it's not about the software or the hardware mostly. It's about the stuff you're moving and where you're moving it from.
Thanks, Paul. And we were asked, will ePro solutions work with LTO 6, or is it just for LTO 7 and above? So yes, this particular solution, the ePro 10G solutions, is for LTO 7, 8, or 9. We talk to a lot of users who have older generations of LTO, and we do have migration solutions we can help these folks with. So please contact us if you have LTO 4, 5, 6, and you want to kind of make it current, and you want to invest in some new hardware and make that data available. But yeah, LTO 7 and above. Another question, for the Canister Pro libraries, will those also be LTFS? Paul?
Yes, for sure. Yes. There's actually not really an alternative, I'd say. And to illustrate that, even devices like on-prem S3, like a Spectra Black Pearl, use LTFS as well, if you do that on tape. So it's very robust. Yeah. And again, it removes you from this vendor lock-in, right? Because in the end, the tape library, if it's filled up, you pull out a tape, you want to be able to restore just that tape. If you use something like Retrospect or Veeam, not happening. It's just one big thing. And there's no way in or out without the database and the host app for that.
And we have another question. Are there issues mixing Mac and Windows users using Hedge Canister with ePro hardware?
Not from a software perspective, and I also don't think from a hardware perspective, right, Azim?
Sorry, I just missed that question. How can I help you?
We're keeping you on your toes,
so
Azim.
someone
Hardware
asking,
mixing Mac and Windows clients on a 10 gig network with ATTO solutions
No,
on the client side and the ePro tape backup on them.
certainly no issues on our side. So we are always agnostic. So Linux, Windows, and Mac OS, all the three major operating systems are supported on the ePro G solution. And the same also applies with archiving platforms, but again, the key focus today is with Hedge Canister product.
And I just want to reiterate too, the Hedge Canister on Mac today with a library with a single drive is pretty full featured, supports tape spanning, everything. So it's a fantastic solution we're excited to offer to our customers. So I have another question here about how does one limit access to the tape library on the network? That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, Anonymous. And Azim, that's a good one for you, because we do rely on your CHAP and ACL features built into the ePro 10G intelligent bridge.
Absolutely. Yes,
one
you're right,
example.
Pete. So the bridge actually offers these two functionalities where one is the ACL and then the CHAP security feature. So for the access control list, which is the ACL, so essentially you can enable what targets can be made visible to the iSCSI initiators that are on the network. And additionally, there's this CHAP security feature also on top of it. And lastly, it's always recommended to separate your local traffic from your iSCSI traffic. So there's those three fundamental requirements that you would need to follow. But the bridge in general offers the ACL functionality and also the CHAP security feature.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Azim. And does another question, Ryan, does LTO, LTFS wear out quickly when using incremental backups? Currently, my active backups with Canister and LTFS are weekly. Can they be done daily or hourly? Paul?
That's a great question. Yeah, I've never heard that question before, but it's great. Yes and no. No, in the sense that it doesn't matter for the tape, because you are writing the incremental data to a new unused part of the tape. And that's it. And then the head stops, and then you verify that. So every bit of the tape gets two passes, one for writing, one for reading back for verification. So in that sense, no. However, LTFS creates a snapshot of the tape contents for each time data is written to it. And it does so we have a setting for it every 5 minutes or every X minutes in a tape. The more often you write to a tape in a batch, it's called a generation, the more room LTFS reserves for those indexes. So it does eat up the available space of your tape. And we've seen with people that do hourly backups that easily eats up half of the tape at some point. That's a bit of a waste for an archive. What we actually suggest doing there is that you use a in-between. So get a staging drive, basically a hard drive. It doesn't have to be fast, which is 20 terabytes just over, or depending on which LTO generation you have, something that's just a little bigger than the one LTO tape. And use a syncing app like Offshoot, or maybe an automated version like ChronoSync to move your data on an hourly basis to it. And when it's full, you move it to tape. And maybe then you want to have two, so you can have a staging and a production drive pairs. But again, it's more about the workflow than the actual gear. And I would use an intermediate staging solution for that. There's one addition to it. If you're going to do this hourly, daily, completely fine, because there's always downtime in a day. But hourly, and if you're busy, then there will be files that are not finished or complete. And that means you're just writing bogus files to a tape that you're never going to use. So that's also a waste of capacity, I think. But daily, for sure.
Thank you, Paul. Oh, we have another. Kurt asked, I might have missed the answer to this question. I have 4 single tape MagStor LTO8 units and would like to convert it to ePro. Did you explain who I need to contact for the upgrade hardware? Kurt, I'll reach out to you. My email is going to be on the next slide. Maybe copy that down too and shoot me a note. But yeah, we can help you with that. Great. I want to talk about the polling real quick, and I really appreciate everybody participating. Hopefully, I'm going to share a slide. So we had a European session earlier today, and then we'll look at our data. But I was encouraged that we had 15 out of 24 respondents in the European session are using 10 gig, and 2 are using 25 gig or higher networks today. So it's great to see that there's people have adopted these high-speed networking technologies. What types of storage media do you currently use for long-term storage? And 9 out of 24 said LTO or other tape. 6 out of 24 said cloud. And as expected, a majority, 16 or 17, said they're using spinning disk. So let's look at our data. I don't know if the users can see the poll or quiz that's been. So we have, for the question, what speed network does your company currently utilize? 56% said 10 gig, 16% said 25 gigs. So roughly similar to the European data. Lots of you are using high-speed networks in your environment today. And as far as what types of storage do you currently use? I don't see that anybody, oh, did anybody choose USB sticks? No, they did not. So 50% hard drive, 38% SSD, interesting. 33% cloud, and 54% LTO or other tape. Obviously, we're a bit of an LTO-oriented crowd here based on who we have as the presenters. But that's great. We all appreciate you all answering the polling questions. So it's been a good session today. We hope you've enjoyed and learned a little bit and have some takeaways, and we'd encourage you to reach out to us. I will distribute the slide deck to all of you who've attended today if I have your email address as part of your registration in a PDF to follow. And you'll notice in there it'll have my email address. And if you want to get a hold of Paul or Azim, just let me know. But we do have a special promotion we're running. We just formally announced our new ePro 10G hardware yesterday. It is in stock, ready to ship. And we have a special 10% off ePro hardware coupon code available to you that's good for July and August. And we're also promoting our NanoPure media, which we talked about, with a special coupon code as well, 20% off for our premium LTO media, NanoPure. So, gosh, Paul, anything else from you? Azim, anything else you'd like to add? Fantastic.
I think there's one question left.
Well, that's the one. Oh, a new one just popped up for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
two. You go.
Well, I did answer the other one before. That's the gentleman who was interested in converting his material to ePro for use on his network. Anonymous, I know this work is very secure. Is there more than one copy on more than one medium, whether MagStor or LTO? But what if it requires me to recover some data after deleting it? Is it possible to recover the data, or do we rely on the strengths of the project security provided by the DIT?
I have something to add there, Pete.
Yeah, please, Paul. Go ahead.
Yeah. As the, well, let's call you producer, client of the DIT, you can dictate this. The DIT does what you think is needed for security. So I would make use of that position. Also, deleting data from hard drives and SD is possible. It's a pain to recover it. However, LTO does not support deletion exactly for this reason. Unless you format the whole thing, which is kind of the same with a hard disk, but in a hard disk, you can also just delete files in Finder or Explorer. That's not possible with LTO if you use an app like Canister. Also, because of those snapshots that I mentioned earlier, if a LTO has an issue in a certain generation, an issue happens, the most common one is a power loss actually during a transfer that prevents the tape from being closed properly. That generation will be lost, but you can roll back the tape to the previous generation and then you're good to go again. So with LTO, there is much more robust ways of making sure data cannot be deleted. And it even goes down to the physical switch of, no, you cannot write on this tape. This is a read-only tape. And we see a lot of people doing that and actually sealing it with a nice seal sticker. And that helps a lot as well. So it's data deletion is typically a human problem. It's almost never a computer problem. So you want to solve this with human solutions as well, like stickers and a proper workflow. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, Paul. And I just want to add, we do offer, our sister company has a data recovery service that can perform data recovery on tape. So you're happy to reach out to us. We'll give you a referral if you have a worst case scenario where you for some reason have a corrupted tape, or the tape had a physical problem or got stuck in the drive and can no longer be used. We can help recover a lot of that data for you. So thanks for that question as well. All right. Great session. Paul, Azim, thank you so much. We really value you as partners at MagStor. And thanks for helping us launch our new ePro 10G take backup solutions. You guys have been great. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you for all the attendees. We look forward to staying in touch with you in the future. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everyone.
having us, Pete.
Bye now.